Life, it seems, has a way of settling into rhythms even when your house occasionally experiences sudden indoor rain showers and inexplicable breezes summoned by a cat who refuses to blink. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to accept a feline deity's quirks as part of my daily routine, but here I am, coffee in hand, watching Nimbus observe the world with those unblinking green eyes that pierce right through any lingering shred of denial. Morning light filters lazily through the curtains as the soft patter of water droplets taps against the windowsill. I blink once, then twice, realizing the sound is coming from inside the house Nimbus is doing, of course. The indoor drizzle is his subtle way of announcing his presence, a reminder that the weather is never quite under my control anymore. The faint scent of wet earth mingles with the aroma of brewing coffee, creating a strangely comforting atmosphere. Nimbus sits perched on the windowsill, sleek black fur shimmering faintly in the morning light, eyes fixed and unblinking as always. I swear he's judging me for the rumpled state of my pajama shirt. "Good morning, Your Majesty," I mutter, more out of habit than belief. Nimbus twitches his tail once in acknowledgement, a silent decree that the day's weather, both literal and metaphorical, will be dictated by his whims. The chaos that once had me frazzled and searching for explanations has softened into a daily comedy show where I'm both the star and the audience. I've learned to navigate the unpredictable weather tantrums with a resigned grin and a dry joke at the ready. When Nimbus conjures a sudden breeze that scatters my paperwork or summons a mini thunderstorm in the kitchen, I respond with a mixture of exasperation and reluctant admiration. It's a strange life, certainly, but it's mine now. Maggie dropped by one afternoon, her sharp eyes sizing up the scene with the practiced skepticism of someone who's known me long enough to expect the unexpected. She perched on the edge of the couch, mug of coffee in hand, ready to deliver her usual brand of sarcastic support. "So, how's the weather-obsessed pet overlord today?" she asked, her tone dry but warm. Nimbus, sprawled majestically across the couch, blinked not once. His tail flicked slowly, as if acknowledging the title but refusing to dignify it with more than a regal disdain. "I think he's planning a hurricane for dinner," I replied, a smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. Maggie laughed, shaking her head. "You always did like a bit of excitement. Just don't let him turn your life into a disaster zone." "Too late for that," I said, glancing at the window where dark clouds gathered ominously, only to dissipate moments later as Nimbus's mood shifted. Our conversations have become a mix of the mundane and the absurd, a balance I cherish. Maggie's pragmatic grounding keeps me sane, while Nimbus's mysterious presence keeps life anything but boring. Then there are the mornings like today, when Nimbus demands his breakfast with all the theatrical flair of a monarch issuing a royal command. I was halfway through making toast when a sudden small whirlwind whipped through the kitchen, sending napkins and a stray sock dancing into the air. "Really?" I said, exasperated but amused as Nimbus sat calmly amidst the chaos, tail flicking with an air of entitlement. His eyes locked on me unblinking, as if to say, "You may be the human, but I am the storm." I sighed and prepared his meal with exaggerated care, murmuring a mock incantation just to keep the peace. The absurdity of it all never fails to make me laugh, even as I wonder how I ended up here sharing my life with a cat who might just be a weather-controlling ancient being. Evenings have taken on a peaceful rhythm despite the day's unpredictability. On the porch, under skies streaked with orange and pink, Nimbus and I share silent moments that speak louder than words. His tail flicks slowly, the unblinking gaze softened by the fading light, and for a brief time, the world feels calm. I watch the neighborhood settle into quiet, the distant hum of life a comforting backdrop. Nimbus, ever the enigmatic companion, seems content to rule his domain with quiet dignity. In these moments, I realize that normalcy isn't about control or predictability. It's about embracing the chaos with a smile, finding joy in the absurd, and accepting that sometimes The best kind of companionship comes with unblinking green eyes and a little weather on the side. And so life with Nimbus continues, unpredictable, hilarious, and strangely perfect in its own unhinged way. Tomorrow may bring another indoor thunderstorm or a sudden gust that scatters my carefully arranged papers, but I'll be ready. Because in this house, ruled by a cat who never blinks, the only constant is delightful chaos. As I settle in for the night, Nimbus curls beside me, purring softly, a rare moment of affection that feels like a reward for surviving another day under his whimsical reign. I reach out to stroke his sleek fur, and for once he doesn't move away. Maybe, just maybe, we've found our rhythm, and tomorrow... Well, tomorrow is another story entirely. The night had settled in with its usual calm, or at least as calm as one could expect when living under the watchful, unblinking gaze of a cat who might very well control the weather. I found myself perched on the edge of the couch, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee that had long since lost any claim to warmth. Across from me, Maggie was sprawled comfortably on the living room floor, her arms folded and her eyes narrowed with a look that was equal parts skepticism and amusement. Nimbus, our midnight monarch, prowled about with all the regal bearing of a small, fur-covered deity, his unblinking green eyes surveying his domain as if it belonged solely to him, which, by now, it probably did. You know, Maggie began, her voice dripping with dry wit, "If Nimbus starts demanding sacrifices, I'm out." I chuckled, despite the knot of anxiety still twisting in my stomach. At this point, I wouldn't even be surprised. Nimbus paused mid-step, fixing Maggie with a stare so intense it felt like he was measuring her for some unknown purpose, perhaps to decide if she was worthy of his enigmatic whims. She met his gaze without flinching, which only made me more certain that she was the only sane person left in this house. "Honestly," she continued, "I don't know how you keep your sanity with that little storm cloud on your shoulder." "It's a daily challenge," I admitted, swirling the dregs of my coffee. "Especially when he starts muttering Latin phrases at 3 in the morning, and then the power flickers like he's conducting a symphony of chaos." Maggie snorted. "Sounds like a party. You should invite me next time." Her sarcasm was a balm, slicing through the surreal haze that Nimbus's presence had cast over my life. Amidst the bizarre weather events, the whispered incantations, and the inexplicable demands for worship, Maggie's pragmatism was a steady lighthouse. She grounded me when the edges of reality began to blur. "So, what's the plan?" I asked, grateful for her level-headedness. "Just keep pretending it's a regular cat and hope the thunderstorms don't get any worse." "That, or get a priest," she said with mock seriousness. "But I don't think Nimbus would appreciate that." We laughed, the sound echoing warmly in the room. It was a rare moment of normalcy, and I clung to it like a life raft. Later, as the clock ticked past midnight, we found ourselves in the kitchen, perched on stools by the counter. The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the space between our quiet conversation. Outside, a gentle wind teased the curtains, making them sway like spectral dancers. Nimbus sat on the windowsill, his silhouette outlined by the moonlight, eyes still fixed unwaveringly on the shifting shadows beyond. "You ever think," Maggie mused, "that maybe Nimbus knows exactly what he's doing? Like he's fully aware of the chaos he's causing and is just toying with you for fun?" I nodded slowly. "It certainly feels that way sometimes. Like I'm just a character in some cosmic joke he's orchestrating." "Well," she said, smirking, "if that's the case, you read the punchline." Her humor was a lifeline, a way to make sense of the madness. With Maggie around, the line between reality and absurdity blurred less dangerously. She didn't dismiss the weirdness outright, but she didn't let it consume us either. One afternoon, after Nimbus had once again summoned a sudden gust that sent papers flying across the room, Maggie sat back in her chair, shaking her head with a wry smile. I was frantically gathering the scattered sheets, muttering apologies to the cat, who watched me with inscrutable eyes. "You know," Maggie said, "if you ever want to start a research project on supernatural cats, I'm your woman." Ivy got notebooks and everything. I laughed, imagining her donning a lab coat and wielding a clipboard, taking meticulous notes on Nimbus's every move. Maybe we should, I said. At least then I'd have a record of all this madness. Just don't let Nimbus catch you, she teased. He might not like being studied. Through it all, Maggie's presence was a steadying force. She was the friend who didn't panic when the sky darkened indoors or when Nimbus hissed some indecipherable phrase that sounded suspiciously like a curse. She was the voice of reason and the source of laughter, the one who reminded me that even in chaos, friendship could be a beacon. As the chapter of our bizarre lives with Nimbus unfolded, I realized that while the cat might rule the household with an unblinking stare and mysterious powers, it was Maggie's grounded support that kept me from losing myself entirely. Together, we navigated the absurdity, finding humor and resilience in the eye of the storm. And just when I thought I might finally catch a break, Nimbus leaped onto the windowsill again, eyes gleaming, as the wind picked up outside, a reminder that with him around, the chaos was far from over. Well, Maggie said, standing up and stretching, I'm always here if you need a reality check, or a sarcastic remark. I'll take both, I replied, smiling despite the looming uncertainty. Because with Nimbus in the house, normal was a distant memory, but at least I wasn't facing the madness alone. It was a Tuesday, which in our household had come to mean brace yourself for the unexpected, but nothing quite prepared me for the whirlwind that was Misera, Jenkins' final theory. I had just settled into my usual post-chaos chair, rumpled, coffee-stained, and utterly resigned when the doorbell rang with the urgency of a town crier announcing the apocalypse. Opening the door, I found Jenkins, notebook clutched like a lifeline, eyes wild and breathless, as if he'd sprinted from the depths of an ancient storm. "Gather round!" he declared, sweeping past me into the living room. Nimbus, as usual, observed from his regal throne atop the windowsill. Unblinking emerald eyes fixed on Jenkins with what I could only interpret as a mixture of disdain and bemusement. Maggie, ever the pragmatist, appeared behind Jenkins with a raised eyebrow and a half smirk. "This can't be good," she muttered, folding her arms and leaning against the doorframe. Jenkins wasted no time. Plopping down on the couch with the grace of a man who had long ago abandoned dignity, he flipped open his battered notebook to a page bursting with scrawled diagrams, arcane symbols, and what looked suspiciously like weather maps overlaid with strange runes. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "I present to you the culmination of my research. Nimbus is no ordinary feline. He is the modern incarnation of an ancient weather cult's deity, a living conduit of atmospheric power." Maggie snorted. "So, basically, he's a furry weather god with a bad attitude." Jenkins ignored the quip, launching into an elaborate explanation that involved Latin incantations, celestial alignments, and the peculiar frequency of Nimbus's unblinking stare. The room filled with the sound of his fervent, sometimes breathless, monologue, punctuated by Maggie's dry commentary and my own attempts to decipher the lunacy that somehow felt just plausible enough to entertain. He pointed to a diagram of concentric circles intersected by jagged lightning bolts and scribbled the phrase Tempestus Dometer beneath it. "Latin," he explained, "for master of the storm." "See," Jenkins said, eyes gleaming, "Nimbus controls the weather not just as a party trick, but as a sacred duty passed down through an unbroken line of feline avatars." Nimbus, as if to confirm the claim, flicked his tail with a slow, deliberate motion, his gaze never leaving Jenkins. The PICDR assistance came when Jenkins insisted on performing a ritual to honor Nimbus and perhaps curry favor with the storm god. We migrated to the backyard, where Jenkins produced an assortment of odd items, a feather duster, a hastily printed Latin chant, and a small bowl of water that he insisted represented the primordial ocean. As Jenkins began chanting in a shaky voice, weaving the feather duster through the air with dramatic flair, Nimbus sat nearby, tail twitching in what I could only assume was feline judgment. Maggie and I exchanged glances, silently agreeing that this was peak suburban absurdity. Then came the moment of truth or chaos, depending on your perspective. A small spark from Jenkins's overzealous waving caught on a patch of dry grass, igniting a flicker of flame that quickly grew. Panic ensued, with Jenkins flapping wildly, Maggie grabbing the garden hose, and me attempting to douse the blaze while simultaneously trying not to laugh at the surreal scene. Nimbus, unperturbed, merely blinked once an event so rare it might as well have been a solar eclipse, and hopped onto the fence, disappearing into the twilight with the grace of a cat who had better things to do than babysit amateur weather cultists. As the smoke cleared and the grass was saved, Jenkins turned to me, a sheepish grin replacing his usual intensity. "Well, it's not perfect, but the theory stands." Maggie rolled her eyes. "And here I was worried you'd lost your mind." I looked at Nimbus's empty perch and then back at Jenkins, feeling a strange mix of amusement, bewilderment, and something like acceptance. Maybe the cat really was some kind of weather deity. Or maybe we were all just desperately trying to make sense of the absurd chaos he brought into our lives. Either way, one thing was clear: life with Nimbus was never going to be boring. As Jenkins packed up his notebook, humming a tune that suspiciously resembled a medieval chant, I felt a wave of gratitude for this bizarre little family we'd become. There was magic here, in the chaos, in the friendship, and yes, even in the unblinking stare of a cat who might just control the weather. And tomorrow I'd probably wake up to a thunderstorm inside the house, or Nimbus muttering something in Latin at 3 in the morning. But for now, I was content to sit back, sip my coffee, and watch the clouds gather, because with Nimbus around, the forecast was always unpredictable. The adventure wasn't over. In fact, it was just getting started. And somewhere in the distance, I swear I heard Nimbus purr approvingly. It was one of those rare moments when the world seemed to pause just long enough for me to catch my breath. Nimbus, as always, sat with a statuesque elegance on my lap, his sleek black fur cool against my skin, and those unblinking emerald eyes fixed somewhere beyond the window. Outside, the rain drummed a gentle rhythm on the glass, a quiet counterpoint to the storm of chaos that had become my life since his arrival. I found myself marveling at how far we had come. When Nimbus first strutted through my door, all regal and mysterious, I had been a mixture of excitement and dread. Was he really some supernatural force in feline form, or just a very peculiar cat with a penchant for Latin mutterings and weather manipulation? Over time, whether by accident or design, the two of us had woven ourselves into a strange, unspoken dance, chaotic, bewildering, but undeniably ours. Sitting there, I let my fingers trace the delicate arch of his back, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. It was a grounding sensation in a world that often felt like it was spinning just a little too fast. I thought about all the bizarre rituals I had concocted to placate him, the half-baked Latin chants, the offering of catnip incense, the awkward attempts at worship that usually ended with me tripping over furniture or accidentally summoning a minor thunderstorm in the kitchen. And yet, here he was calm, poised at the center of my daily chaos. The doorbell rang, shattering the peaceful moment. Maggie was here, of course, my pragmatic, sarcastic lifeline in this madness. I opened the door to find her shaking her head with that familiar dry smile. Still worshipping the weather god cat, she teased, stepping inside with the casual confidence of someone who had long ago accepted that normal conversations were a luxury I no longer enjoyed. "He demands it," I replied, half serious, half joking, "and I'm pretty sure he controls the barometer." Maggie laughed, a sound that felt like sunshine breaking through the clouds. We settled in the living room, steaming mugs in hand, while Nimbus watched us from his perch on the window sill. Our conversation danced between absurdity and sincerity, as it always did. Maggie's sarcastic commentary was a balm to my frazzled nerves, reminding me that I wasn't completely alone in this. "You know," she said, "if Nimbus ever decides to take over the world, you are going to be the first to know, and probably the first to be sacrificed." I rolled my eyes, but the truth in her words was undeniable. Nimbus was no ordinary cat. His unblinking gaze seemed to hold secrets older than the house itself, and sometimes, just sometimes, I caught a flicker of something almost human. Or perhaps something uncomfortably otherworldly. Later that night, armed with a dubious sense of bravery and a half-remembered Latin phrase, I attempted one last ritual. Feather in hand, I waved it awkwardly in a slow circle and whispered the incantation under my breath, hoping to coax some sort of sign from my enigmatic companion. To my surprise, Nimbus responded. He blinked. Just once, slow and deliberate, like a secret acknowledgement between us. And in that simple gesture, years of confusion, frustration, and chaos melted away into a quiet laughter that bubbled up from deep inside me. That slow blink was more than a fleeting expression, it was a bridge. Our unblinking cat had, for one brief moment, blinked at me. And I realized then that perhaps understanding wasn't the point. Maybe it was the bond itself, strange, illogical, and utterly absurd, that mattered most. Days passed in a gentle montage of the ordinary and extraordinary. Nimbus chased stray sunbeams that filtered through the curtains, his graceful leaps casting playful shadows on the walls. I spilled my morning coffee when a sudden breeze whispered through the open window, sending papers fluttering like startled birds. We shared quiet afternoons, sometimes napping side by side as the world outside continued its unpredictable dance. In these moments, the madness of the past weeks settled into a comfortable rhythm. The chaos was no longer a source of anxiety, but a wellspring of joy and companionship. Nimbus was not just a pet or a puzzle to be solved, he was a partner in this surreal comedy, a guardian of the unexplainable, and a companion I had come to cherish beyond reason. As I sat there, watching his unblinking gaze sweep the room, I felt a warmth that had little to do with the weather and everything to do with acceptance. Life with Nimbus was unpredictable, absurd, and utterly hilarious, and somehow that was exactly what I needed. The cat that never blinks had finally opened a window into my own heart, a place where chaos and order, logic and nonsense could coexist in perfect harmony. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay with not knowing all the answers. Because maybe, just maybe, some bonds are meant to be unblinking. I never thought I'd find peace in chaos, but here I am, sprawled on the living room floor, watching Nimbus, my sleek, unblinking enigma, circle me like some sort of furry, weather-controlling deity. The lamp casts a soft glow, flickering occasionally as if responding to some secret rhythm only Nimbus can hear. Outside, the rain taps a gentle tattoo against the window pane, a soothing soundtrack to this quiet moment. For the first time since Nimbus arrived, I'm not scrambling to predict the next bizarre weather event or decode his cryptic Latin murmurs. Instead, I'm laughing quietly, reveling in the absurdity that has become my everyday life. It's strange how quickly the strange becomes normal. Just yesterday, Maggie dropped by leaning casually against the kitchen doorway, her arms folded and a smirk playing on her lips as she watched Nimbus bat a feather toy across the linoleum floor. "So," she said dryly, "Nimbus decided to turn your Zoom meeting into a hurricane, huh?" I nodded, recalling the sudden gust that scattered my carefully arranged notes like confetti. Nimbus's tail flicked mischievously under the fluorescent kitchen light, clearly pleased with himself. Maggie's sarcastic commentary has become a comforting constant, a reminder that this madness is shared and not mine alone to bear. Our conversations have shifted, too. Where once I was desperate to understand every odd phrase Nimbus muttered, now I take his Latin whispers as part of the soundtrack of our life together. Like the indoor breeze swirling down the hallway, carrying the scent of rain and earth, mingling with the warm aroma of brewing coffee. I pause mid-step, locking eyes with Nimbus's unblinking stare, and instead of frustration, I find myself chuckling at the ridiculousness of trying to negotiate with a cat who can summon storms at will. There's a rhythm to this chaos now, a strange harmony between the absurd and the ordinary. Nimbus has claimed this suburban home as his kingdom, and I've become his loyal, if somewhat bewildered, subject. But this role reversal has gifted me something unexpected: joy. Joy in the unpredictability, in the moments when a sudden storm bursts from a sunny sky, or when Nimbus curls in my lap with a rare, contented purr. Even the bizarre rituals I once performed with trembling hands have become playful dances, a language of companionship spoken without words. Twilight finds us by the window, the sky a magnificent swirl of purples and pinks, painted by the tempest Nimbus conjured earlier this week. The notebook in my hand is filled with scribbles and sketches, notes on weather patterns, Latin phrases, and the odd behavioral quirk. But more than anything, it's a record of a journey from confusion to acceptance, from fear to laughter. Nimbus's green eyes sparkle with serene authority as I write, a silent promise that this chaos, this beautiful, unpredictable chaos, is here to stay. So yes, life with Nimbus is far from ordinary. It's a whirlwind of storms and whispers, rituals and ridiculousness. But it's also a story of companionship, of finding humor and warmth in the most unexpected places. And as I sit here, watching the rain dance on the window pane and Nimbus reign with unblinking eyes, I realize something important. Sometimes, the best way to live is to let go of control and embrace the chaos as normal. After all, isn't that where the real magic happens? The next flicker of the lamp catches Nimbus's gaze, and I smile. Whatever comes next, whatever storms or spells he has in store, I'm ready. Because in this house, under Nimbus's watchful eyes, chaos isn't the enemy, it's the heart of home. And just when I think I've finally settled into this new normal, a faint rumble rolls through the walls, and Nimbus lets out a low, satisfied purr. I glance outside to see a new, unexpected storm brewing on the horizon. Well, here we go again. Bring it on, Nimbus, I say with a grin. I'm all in. And with that, the cat that never blinks, and I prepare for whatever absurd adventure awaits us next. The cat that never blinks. At last, here we are. After 30 chapters, countless strange weather events, absurd rituals, and more Latin phrases than I ever thought I'd hear in a suburban home. The story of Nimbus and me reaches its curious, unblinking conclusion. It's ironic, really, a cat that never blinks, and yet somehow I find myself blinking away tears of laughter and bewilderment as I sit here typing this final chapter. Nimbus, of course, remains exactly as he ever was: sleek black fur, piercing green eyes that refuse to close even for a moment, and a regal posture that makes every other cat I've ever met look like a bedraggled alley survivor. He's perched on the armrest of my battered old couch, tail flicking ever so slightly, watching me with a calm so profound it could unsettle a Zen master, or an ordinary suburban pet owner. It's funny how things change when you embrace the absurd. When Nimbus first arrived, I was skeptical, exhausted, and more than a little anxious about the strange Latin whispers and sudden indoor thunderstorms. Remember that? The rain pouring down from the ceiling like some kind of feline curse. I thought I was losing my mind. But now, sitting here in the twilight of this suburban evening, I realize that losing my mind might have been exactly what I needed. The day's light fades softly through the curtains, casting long shadows that dance with Nimbus's silent presence. Outside, a gentle rain taps rhythmically against the window pane, a sound that once might have sent me into a panic about weather patterns and cat-induced storms. Now it's just background music to the strange symphony of life we compose together. Maggie drops by, as she often does, her sharp eyes behind those glasses of hers flicking between Nimbus and me with a mixture of disbelief and amusement. Still talking to the cat in Leighton, she quips, plopping down beside me with her trademark sarcastic grin. I shrug, half smiling. He listens. Sometimes, Nimbus emits one of his rare, barely audible Latin mutterings, something about tempestuous quieter calm weather, I think, and Maggie raises an eyebrow, clearly considering whether to call a professional or just chalk this all up to my questionable sanity. We share a laugh, the kind that bubbles up from the absurdity of the situation and the warmth of an old friendship. Later, Jenkins pays one of his infamous visits, notebook clutched tightly like a talisman. His wild theories about Nimbus's origins, ranging from ancient weather gods to interdimensional feline overlords, are met with my half-grinned amusement and Nimbus's complete indifference. The cat stretches languidly on the windowsill, eyes tracking the raindrops as if orchestrating the world outside with a single unblinking stare. I listen, fascinated despite myself. Jenkins's passion, his obsession with the supernatural, adds a layer of mystery that I'd never fully appreciated until now. Maybe Nimbus isn't just a cat. Maybe he's something more. Or maybe he's a cat who's found the perfect way to keep a man on the edge of reason and laughter. As night settles, I find myself alone in the kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional drip of rain the only sounds accompanying me. I sip my tea, feeling the warmth spread through my hands and into my chest. Nimbus sits nearby, his gaze fixed on the window, the unblinking eyes a steady beacon in the dim light. There's comfort in that gaze, a strange reassurance that beneath the chaos, the storms, and the Latin incantations, there's a bond that defies explanation. A friendship forged in absurdity, laughter, and the unpredictable dance of companionship. So what now? Do I try to unravel the mystery further? Do I continue to battle the storms and perform bizarre rituals? Nah, I think I'll just accept it. Accept Nimbus for what he is. A cat that never blinks, a master of chaos, a source of unending comedy and occasional affection. Life with Nimbus is unpredictable, utterly ridiculous, and strangely wonderful. And really, isn't that what companionship is all about? As I settle back on the couch, Nimbus curls up beside me, tail twitching with satisfaction. His green eyes never close, but they don't need to. We both know the world is a little stranger now, and that's perfectly fine by me, because sometimes the best kind of normal is a little bit crazy. And so the cat that never blinks rules my heart and home, a silent sovereign of storms and laughter, forever a hilarious mystery in this suburban life. But hey, if you ever need a weather forecast, just ask Nimbus. Just don't be surprised if the answer is in Latin. End of the story. Not quite. Just the beginning of a new chapter, one full of chaos, companionship, and the unblinking stare of a cat who knows far more than he lets on. And me. I wouldn't have it any other way.